Hi, people. So, this video is about what it does to our inner world and to our relationship with the world when we change our inner questions. And specifically today, I'm looking at changing the inner question of right and wrong to the inner question of loving and unloving. What I mean by that is that we make choices all the time. We look at various questions and making those choices like, what's the right or wrong thing to do? What's going to be productive? What's going to be creative? What's going to make a difference? What's going to feel good? What's going to be the best way to say this that they can hear me? What's going to be the best way to say this that I feel heard? Lots of questions that drive our choices. What's behind the choice is a set of questions. And we often look at changing our answers. Is there a different choice for me to make right now? Or is there a different answer to where to set my boundaries? Or is there a different answer to what's the healthiest thing for me to eat? We change our answers a lot. That's often how we learn and grow. And what I'm suggesting is that instead, it's a much bigger change when we change the questions. And in the pattern of my recent videos, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the work that will be part of this video now, kind of early on, so that if that's all you want, if you're getting the stuff to play with is all you're looking for, you can bail. And then I'll get into more explanation. So first, I'm going to introduce the work, and then I'm going to do the talking about the work, because I know what it's like. Sometimes I just want to do the work. I don't want to listen to somebody talk about the work. I just want to do the work. So, just for now, here's the work. I'm going to give in-the-moment work and then overtime work, like homework. The in-the-moment work is, just for now, noticing how much do I want to be right? Anybody ever want to be right? And just letting that be a feeling of wanting. And this is a Sedona method style release we're doing right now. So allowing the feeling of wanting to be right, letting that be fully felt, then asking the three questions. Could I let that feeling go? Feels like I could let go of the wanting. Would I let that wanting go? And yeah, it feels like I would. And then when? Feels like now. Okay. So I let go of the wanting, however much I do right now. And by the way, I am actually doing this work. This issue has been brought up for me this week as well as for a lot of us. And again, noticing what the right now feeling is. There's still some wanting to be right. So I'm going to allow that wanting to be right to be felt like a wanting. And letting myself feel it however much I do right now. Could I let it go? Yep. Would I let it go? Yeah. And when? Now. So, letting something go isn't making it go away. It's not letting it go away. It's letting go of my grip on it. So once I've let go of my grip on it, it can stay here, it can go, it can become bigger, it can become smaller. I can be giving it more space, or I can be giving it more flow. More space means it's even more here. More flow even means it's somewhere else. All that. And tuning in again to what the right now feeling is, there's more peace. And that 5-question loop of this, of the Sedona method, what's my right now feeling? Could I allow it? Could I let it go? Would I let it go? And when? That 5-question loop, you can do that to inner peace. And by the way, you always end with question 1. What's the right now feeling? Because that's when you get the reward for having done the work. You get to feel what it feels like after I let go of a feeling. I allow the feeling, I let it go. How do I feel now? You get the gains. You get to feel, what do I feel like relating to the world now? And it expands, and it moves, and I'm more fluid when I do that. So the homework is to look at the questions. When I ask myself, what's the next right thing I could do? That's a great question. Gosh, we know people who don't have questions like that, and what a mess that can be. So that's a great question. And if I do the right thing for the rest of my life, is it going to make me loving? Maybe yes, maybe no. If I do the loving thing for the rest of my life, is that going to fulfill doing the right thing? Yeah, it's probably going to fulfill doing the right thing. We all know what it's like to love unwisely. You learn to love yourself as well as them, or you learn to love them as well as yourself. You learn to put in balance one way or another. You learn wisdom about love. You learn how to love all beings, maybe even. Maybe even you love how to love all beings, including yourself, unconditionally. There's wise love and not so wise love. So, love can be matured. But on the whole, I could do the right thing forever and not fulfill being loving. I can do what's loving forever, and I will fulfill doing what's right. So loving is a more comprehensive question. It's a more complete question to explore. And I'm going to talk briefly about how that can play out when we're just being right. Like, being right can be a wonderful thing in our lives, doing the best thing we can. It can also be a trap. It can also be dangerous. I'm going to give 2 examples. One is 9/11. I remember on 9/11, I had friends in the World Trade Center because I was taking landmark seminars at the time and knew people there, and called around looking to find out, I saw a building fall down. Is everybody okay? I think it was after the second building fell down, and not reaching people, and then finally I reached Joyce Pike. Some of you know her. She's now, I think, it's still a wisdom course leader. And she said, everybody's fine. They got out of the building, and look, thank God their workday begins at 10 a.m. But then I asked her, Joyce, where does Landmark stand in all of this? And she said, Landmark stands where it has always stood, in a world that works for everyone. Then there'd be no need for things like this. And think about that. Think about that in some of the situations we've been dealing with where people are being right about stay at home, or they're being right about wearing masks, or they're being right about taking care of the economy. People who've who were losing their small businesses that it took them decades to build, and their fears are different from mine. And so they're being right about restarting the economy. Well, these are all good points. These are all valuable things. And when I'm being loving, I care about all these questions. I care about safety. I care about health. I care about people's livelihood. I care about the fears on all sides. That's what being loving can do. That's what it can handle. But being right usually just sticks to one side of a question. It doesn't get all that's there. It doesn't relate to the entire picture. And a couple weeks later, when the seminar resumed and Joyce was at the front of the class, people asked her, what do you see now about all this? She said, 9/11 was the epitome of somebody being right. Somebody who had only their own vision, could only see what they saw, and was driven by that regardless of anybody else. Think of what it would be different if we approached the Middle East from a viewpoint of being loving, and if the Middle East approached us from a viewpoint of being loving. What would that have looked like? might not have looked like a couple towers going down. It might not have looked like some of the interventions that we did when the CIA was in terrible dysfunction. Not going to address today right now. We know the history got pretty dark. The other example of being right that I want to talk about was the George Floyd incident, because that's what's present right now. And I am glad, actually, that I remember George Floyd's name, and I don't remember the police officer's name. I feel like that's appropriate. I care about the life lost. I'm sure that that officer is struggling. Talk about struggling with questions. I'm sure he's got questions that he's struggling with right now. Like, what was the right thing to do? And what was the loving thing to do? I hope that his questions at least touch upon what might have been a loving thing to do. Like, maybe it was appropriate to gain control in the situation, but did it have to be control that involved dangerous restraint? Or, did he have to be endangering George Floyd in order to gain control of the situation? There are a lot of options there that many of us can think of looking back. And what I'm going to assert, and I don't know, I'm not in that guy's skin, but what I'm going to assert is that there was in this tragedy, some of what happened was the police officer was being right. Like, he was supposed to be in control, and this guy's supposed to submit to me, and why doesn't he shut up, and I'm the one who's in the right, and I'm the one who's only seeing my own point of view, only seeing what's important in my side of it. Being loving is a different view. It's a habit. In a situation like that where it's a crisis, what comes up, the thoughts that come up are the thoughts of habit, deep habit, like the woman who didn't like being told that she should put her dog on a leash. What came up was deep emotional habit of being right instead of being loving. Change the internal questions. Don't just change your thought. Don't just change your words. Don't just change what you post online. Change your thoughts. Look at what questions you ask yourself. Shift the questions. You can't stop an old set of questions. There's no flow there. You can replace it with a different set of questions. If that's a movement, instead of trying to stop an old way of thinking, you replace it with a new way of thinking. You see an old question coming up? Okay, great. If I'm going through hell, I have to keep going. You keep going by replacing it with a new question, putting in a new question, focusing on that new question, playing with, exploring, diving into a new question. What would the loving thing be to do here? I got a little amped up because, I'm still struggling with these questions too. This is heavy duty stuff. I know I might have sounded like I have answers here. I have questions. And the questions that serve me are questions including what's loving, what's connected, what's aware, what's grounded, what's creative, what's empowering, what's receptive, what's expressive. Those are great questions. Those are discernment questions instead of judgment questions. We're not going to get into discernment versus judgment in this video, but that's what I got for today, peeps. Hope you've gotten something to think about or play with, or maybe even be inspired by. Be well.